This is a message from Joseph P. Firmage.
I was an inventor from the earliest memories. I grew up in my home in Holiday, Salt Lake City, Utah. After feeding the ducks and the chickens and the horses in our family farm in that small town, head off to school early and always precocious. I so enjoyed the learning and the tinkering with technology and setting up wires and motors all over the house to open and close doors on command with the flip of a switch or wave of the hand even. And I can't count how many vacuums I took apart and tried to reassemble to see how that instrument worked, how it functioned. My first real invention, I suppose, I imagined a magic ball, soccer ball, or a basketball that could suddenly just roll on its own and would be able to, you could basically watch the ball move itself through over the surface of a court and order it to jump or roll faster, jump into the air and fly. I actually wrote a patent, but never found it on that one. I started my first real software company when I was selling Acer and leading edge computer components and helping the sales process through the accounting departments of clients like Hill Air Force Base. Always seemed to be with the military throughout my career, from the private sector mainly, but I grew up into a Navy brand, I suppose, in the private sector space because when I was 17, I started my first software company while I transitioned into an academic scholarship in physics, as a matter of fact, in the University of Utah. But about halfway through an excellent academic scholarship, learning the physics of gravity and inertia, all those words you love to hate sometimes, unless you come to understand them, of course. We fear that we don't understand, but we can. Physics is a marvelous domain of science, a passion of my life, science, especially when it's taught well. Any discipline of science, physics, chemistry, biology, and all up the chain to us living beings in all the way through our human behaviors that always mystify and comprise, of course, the basis of life's joys, life's the excitements and wonders, discoveries, and the joyous feeling when we see something new for the first time. That's the joy of science, and physics is the core of all science. Very close to cosmology, the latter being how it all started or how it continues on forever. Two great alternatives in cosmology today. But physics is different. It's the physics of touch and sense and smell, reduced all the way to the electron, a fundamental particle that defines all the matter we touch, see, sense in any way, smell, hear, even intuit. It's all includes electrons that make us what we are, and the light, the exchange between them. Yes, the light that is exchanged between atoms. We often call photons, but I think that a photon will soon become understood as also a pair of electrons of some kind, or it seems to say so as we try to tease these little particles of light. Science has always inspired my life. Science. Inspired to me by an amazing teacher, a master teacher, Dr. Carl Sagan. I remember distinctly when my parents planted my butt in front of the TV on a Sunday night and said, "Son, you're going to watch this program." And it was this magnificent PBS television program called Cosmos. And just the soaring process of discovering the planets and the galaxies, all the way down to the atoms that comprise us all and make all the matter that matters. Indeed, that masterpiece, Cosmos, I was so privileged to back its reintroduction at the turn of the millennium in 2000 with his wife and creative genius partner, Miss Andrienne, and reintroduced that masterpiece of the world to DVD distribution worldwide in 2000. Such a privilege it was. But back in the turn from the 1980s to the 1990s, when I turned from a teenager into a man, of course, those growing up years for me were quite different, I must say, because I decided to cut my University of Utah tenure as an academic scholar seeking the physics degree, and instead I simply could not ignore the rise of the internet economy at that stage. We were simply beginning to design applications for personal computers like PCs and Macintoshes, and so I was very much a part of that community of leaders and pioneers back as the 80s turned into the 90s again, when computers slammed into the future, which we now call the internet. And that's when the internet economy took its birth. And I was one of the pioneers who built systems that today we call apps. Indeed, I was one of the builders of the first application builders to create the small programs that you use every day on your smartphones, such as Apple's and Samsung's Galaxy phones. The apps that you use today were derived in part from the work I did on AppWare and App Builder to equip ordinary people like you and me to create their own apps for any purpose whatsoever, from business to creative arts. I remember working with George Lucas and his team in Skywalker Ranch, where they made great use of AppWare, App Builder. And I was just so honored when the U.S. Navy chose to adopt AppWare and App Builder to help power our fleets, to help automate and test the weapon systems of our most potent conventional weapons that we protect our nation with across and over the seas. Yes, the App Builder was a great tool for the Navy to help perfect our weapon systems, to make sure that they're ready if we need them in the future, God forbid. But it was a privilege to serve the United States Navy at such a young age, starting when I was basically 22 and on through when it became classified beyond the reach of my then future trajectory, which continued to focus on the economy of the future, the internet economy, as we now witness the birth of the extraordinary roboticized internet economy. It's reached a new phase, my friends, and having been a father of the original internet economy in the 90s, helping to lead the teams that built over 50% of the first internet commerce systems for the Fortune 100 as they operate worldwide, most headquartered in the United States of America, of course. But it has been an enduring commitment of Joseph Firmage. And most of you haven't met Joseph Firmage, of course, but I hope to meet you soon and introduce you to the things that we've been working on for the last 25 years or so, since that great company, US Web, and US Web CKS, as it became to know, as it evolved into a number of enterprises, and as my talented team, after I went on to actually return to physics, many of my information technology colleagues, after launching such a gigantic company in the late 90s, it seemed to vanish off the scene into more focused endeavors of some kind, that I sort of disappeared from the radar screen of public affairs for the last 25 years, most of it anyway. But it turns out that I returned to my core passion, my love of life, invention, and invention itself within the very fields and the disciplines of science itself. And as the new millennium approached, I also approached some questions of my own that were arising in my studies from the core disciplines of science. From a decade earlier, it felt like I was witness to the rise of the internet economy, and with some of these new remarkable discoveries emerging from our most thoughtful scientists and our most advanced instruments in space, the Hubble Space Telescope, and now its successors even taking that further. But in the late 90s, in the core discipline of physics, we were witness to some remarkable new possibilities, just remarkable potentials for us to build new platforms for very advanced propulsion that could send us to the moon in 4 or 5 hours. Imagine that. 4 or 5 hours. And to Mars within a couple of weeks. It would be more like a cruise to Mars, to travel there and back safely with what is equivalent to gravitation or gravity. Imagine walking around and having a cocktail on the way to Mars and needing spacesuits only for emergencies, or the enjoyable spacewalk if you'd like to experience zero gravity. But imagine getting to Mars in 2 weeks and back in the same amount of time, with your family or without. What would it be like to join colonization, young men and women? What would it be like, I thought to myself, if every young graduating high school student could imagine themselves being part of the effort to colonize Mars and mean it, and be able to get there and back and grow their families with them along the way in that grand adventure to colonize another planet like Mars. Well, in the past 20 years, those are the kinds of things that I have been devoted to. The science, the scientists, and the inventions to come. And they are among the reasons that I am approaching and sharing my story with you today as I run for President of the United States. I believe in my heart and my soul that we have merely started the grand human experiment. The new innovations brought about from the new steam, the amazing wonders ahead for our nation to build together. These new wonders also must, above all else, focus on solutions for our economy, for our pocketbooks, our wallets, to help us all make ends meet. The challenge of inflation, the banking system's crises that seem to never end, the true challenge of financing our children's education through college, such a basic task seems out of most people's reach these days. Well, I stand here as a father of the original internet economy that now flourishes across the globe. And having been there from the start, I can assure you, my fellow citizens, that I have a plan that can work with your help. I know we can. I know we can together. Which brings me to my last thought as I begin work at my desk. I carry my flag with me wherever I may be, because I hope to visit you in your state, in your capital cities, in our towns and town halls over the next months and years as you get to know me better. I do carry my flag with me, and I treasure and honor it as I do the United States Constitution and the oaths that all government officers take to that sacred document. I believe in a new America, my fellow citizens. I do. And only together, only united, only with a united sense of spirit across the aisles of our Congress, across the streets, the towns, the states, all the boundaries that we think define us and separate us, they do not and should not. For only united shall we stand. Only united Can we build this bright future for all of us together? Of course. Let us stand united for a new America, a new future for us all. I stand before you as a servant to be, as a candidate to represent all parties. Of course, I must choose one. As I return to my roots, a proud Democrat, I shall run. Thank you for sharing this journey with me, my fellow citizens. May God bless you, your families, and may God bless the United States of America.
Firmage.